We got a ton of new JJK information straight from the man himself, Gege Akutami. This comes via the Jujutsu Kaisen exhibition that's going on right now in Japan. But before we dive into it, if you're not caught up on the manga, there could be some spoilers here. So as we all know, JJK has a lot of motion, and as part of that, it now has an exhibit in Japan that is basically like a Jujutsu Kaisen museum, if you will, and this is just a small sample of what it looks like. But as part of this exhibit, there's like an audio tour, if you will. You know, you pop in headphones and you listen to stuff as you're walking around. Well, a lot of that is straight from Gege himself, like Q&As and him explaining different things about the series. So what we have here today is a translation of a large part of that audio tour. So take it with a slight grain of salt because, you know, we're getting it third hand here. We're getting the information from somebody who went to the exhibit, who then told somebody online, and now that's been translated to English. Now, that being said, I do have a pretty high level of confidence in this information because it's been vetted by the large part of the JJK community, but you still never know. So again, grain of salt with some of it. You know what? I'm just going to give you guys the hardest blow first so that we can start to move past it. But Gege was asked for a comment on the cover of volume 26, this one right here. And he basically said that it served to honor Gojo as his funeral portrait. Basically saying that he wanted to put the camellia flower, which does represent rebirth, but since Gojo lost, he couldn't really do that. And so instead he used another camellia flower. And this might be, you know, where we're getting lost in translation, but there are multiple types of camellias, so maybe he just wasn't using the rebirth one and instead was using a different one. So this is pretty definitive that Gojo will not be getting his, you know, true resurrection and happily ever after moment. But at this point, we pretty much knew this. Me personally, I'm still holding out hope for the clarity moment, you know, not resurrected, but just like the Geto choke. Can he come through and help his students once more? We'll see. And speaking of character deaths, Gege was asked, why did Mei survive in Shibuya instead of being taken out there? And Gege says, I don't think a character should die if readers don't feel any emotion for them like sadness. Gege is a monster, basically saying that he's not going to kill anybody unless he knows it's going to inflict psychic damage on us. Next, Gege was asked about the popularity of the Hidden Inventory arc and was asked if there was anything he learned from that, basically. And he says, to begin with, Gojo and Geto are popular, so maybe Toji raising in popularity was something that surprised me. Aside from that, because Jujutsu Kaisen is not a story about Yuji becoming something, like a Pirate King, Hokage, or hero, perhaps readers will accept and it won't become that much of a problem if the story deviates from the main character, if it's not about Yuji, like in Hidden Inventory. Because this is also Jujutsu Kaisen's weakness, I'll be careful next time. So that's really interesting, basically implying that Gege will be telling another story after the conclusion of Jujutsu Kaisen that will perhaps be more typical shonen, more MC focused. All right, so for the rest of the questions we're going to go over, these have actually been compiled by Myth on Twitter, so massive shout out to him and his translator, TL Kuhn, for putting this together for us. And I mentioned the audio tour earlier. There is also like text written on some of these exhibits on the walls, so some of this is translated from those, and because sometimes it's blurry, we're going to have question marks where we don't exactly know what was said. But starting off here, Gege was asked, what kind of goal did you have in mind when you drew Naoya, who was antagonistic to Maki in many different ways? He says, I did not include Naoya to oppose Maki. Naoya's characteristics were put together from having to embody the Zenin family being an unpleasant clan. And while Maki coming into conflict with the Zenin family was already largely determined, the character was not created just as an opposition. Each character has a unique sense to how they are born. The chemistry of characters are important, or that how the characters are set up is, but where the characters are positioned can be and too obvious, leading to a reader getting bored, which I wanted to avoid. All right, for this next question, we have a translation note, and Kozen just means JJK0, so I'm just going to say that, and Kaizen refers to normal JJK. I also think I can fill in the question marks on this one, but Gege was asked, in the official fan book, it was said that you analyzed the first chapters of Bleach and Naruto. Can you tell us more about that? With Naruto, it was the relationship of the main character Naruto with the Nine-Tails Kurama. For JJK0 and Akotsu, it was Rika. For JJK0, the Kurama in Naruto served as a model, but for Kaizen, I was thinking of a different approach and chose to draw Itadori being incompatible and in conflict with Sukuna. Now, with Bleach, it was how the story progressed. Ichigo, the main character, is caught up in an unexpected situation and becomes a Shinigami of his own will. So, with Jujutsu Kaisen, I took that act of free will for how Itadori ate the cursed item. Next up, Gege was asked about Nanami versus Mahito. You have previously said in the past how the characters acted in a way that surpassed your readers' expectations, so could you please tell us a bit more about that? It's like the script moves and changes depending on the characters. I was thinking on how I didn't want Nanami to die there, but it also couldn't be helped. And then Itadori entered, giving us the result we all know happened. I felt that Nanami has surpassed the script, but as I sit here explaining this, it wasn't Nanami, it was actually Itadori who surpassed the script. And to translate a little here, what he's talking about is, as a writer, when you have things plotted out and in mind, but then the characters take on a life of their own and actually change the shape of the story. So Gege originally had Nanami dying in that first fight with Mahito, but how the characters molded and moved, Itadori actually came in and saved Nanami, caused Gege to change the direction he was originally going to go with the story. Next up, let's say there was a tournament battle. What do you think would have changed? When I think about how to create multiple new characters, I follow in the steps of Ken Kashubai's method of introducing characters beforehand, through small stories and anecdotes. When will this guy show up? Oh, this guy is going to appear at this time. Put simply, what would happen if this guy and this guy fought? Are the shots of excited anticipation I also wanted to create. But later on, I felt the doubt that what I should have followed in the steps of was not that, but how the tournament was structured. I would have felt a lot more relieved had I changed the components of the barrier into the game stage, and the rules of the culling games into a tournament. Had I done that, I could have done more to set up Sumiki and Kurusu, and might have even tied in recovering Gojo, the prison cube. As I know about it now, there are so many good things about it. As for why I didn't think of it at the time, doing the Kyoto Goodwill event arc as a tournament had previously come up, but I just had no intention to do that from the start, and intended to simply have it conclude with a team battle. My reason was that I thought I should not do a 1v1 tournament before all the characters had appeared. And I think it was just that after that all the characters must appear slipped away, and the idea that you cannot do a tournament solidified in my head. It is one of the great reflections of my life. So again, a bit rough translation there, but he's essentially saying he maybe wishes he had done more of an official tournament style, but didn't feel like he could do that until all of the players had been introduced. And by the time he got rid of that idea that he didn't need to introduce all the players, it was kind of too late. Next, the timeline has been complex. How did you plan that out? When it came to the timeline, I really just did it in broad strokes. Rather, what I was being careful about was the geographic side of things, ensuring everything was coherent. Where someone was, at what time people could meet up, at what location, those types of things. But I do think I should have been more accurate with the time and done it much better. I was too caught up in where everyone was, and it resulted in the timeline being a bit sloopy. Reflect. What parts do you think about when you look back on the culling game arcs? I put too much something into something. I'm guessing I put too much emphasis into something he regrets. Just guessing, but I think that his attention was too much on the scenery landscape. What did you realize when drawing the city of Shibuya? I went around the underground train station several times when location hunting for Gojo's ceiling. With that in mind, I traded ideas with the specialist staff, Kei-san below, asking, wouldn't it be fun to have the fight here? Above ground as well. I had Kei-san beforehand generally looked into Shibuya and Shibuya Station, above and below ground, when I started Hidden Inventory and the Premature Death arc. And at Kei-san's house, I also location hunted several times. Then I looked at a Google Maps app, got a geographic sense of things, and began drawing. At times, it took me quite a long time to draw as I don't have much connection to Shibuya, but I do think I got a good sense of the place. This next question is asked in reference to an image of Yuji, Nobara, and Megami. When creating the three characters, how far did you go in creating their beginnings and hidden lore? This is just a general image, but I didn't really have too much decided on. Really just on the level that if I was asked something I could answer, it might be like this. I'm scared that characters won't move too much if too much is decided on, and the characters will move too little if too little is decided on, so I wanted to play it safe. I did already mostly have Nobara's family situation in place before coming to JJK0. With Itadori, several points like why was a special grade cursed item at his school were necessary, so I thought that at worst, I would go with the reason being that everything was arranged by Kinjaku. Fushiguro was based on, we don't know, and then we all know what happened. Again, since the translation's a little wonky here, Gege is basically saying he only had like the bare bones structure in place for the characters because he wanted to know enough about them to be able to write them, but not put too much in stone to where he couldn't be flexible when writing them. Next up, Gege was asked, was it necessary to have the main character of JJK Zero, Okotsu, fade out, and yet, on the other hand, you left Gojo in to get the serialization rolling? Were you sure of this decision? Gege says, I had intended the story to have Gojo be in the guiding role, and quickly get Itadori to meet the other JJK Zero members, so Gojo was necessary as a mentor. When it comes to Akotsu, during the start of JJK, my editor at the time advised me that wouldn't it be simpler to not have him in it, and I thought that was a good idea, so I chose not to have him appear in Jujutsu Kaisen. When it was decided that Akotsu would later appear, I think we decided on having JJK 0 being published in Jump Giga to have a mythological role in JJK. On the other hand, there was never a choice to remove Gojo. It would be like having My Hero Academia without having All Might. Next up, Gege was asked to explain how Black Flash was born, and he says, my editor at the time, Mr. Katayama, said that he wanted Itadori to have a special move, and that didn't feel right to me, and I think it was born from the idea of a move that most people can't do, resulting in Divergent Fist into Black Flash. I think of it like critical hits from the game Onimusha. It's like a counter move you see in a lot of RTAs. I like that it is not a unique move as well as how your voltage increases upon using it. Its explosiveness has something, and being able to use it back to back enables comebacks. And since I made it so that enemies can generate black flashes as well, it created tension. And finally, for this last question, there's a lot of translation notes, but I'm just going to fill in the blanks here. When it comes to special moves, it is necessary for impact panels while explaining the power and effects. What are you thinking about when drawing these impact panels? Gege says that I just think about drawing it as well as I can and as cool as I can. Nothing all that special. Maybe I'm hard on myself in getting the layouts to my liking. On the power, there are many parts that are something, but holding close to the notion that I want to draw it well and letting it flow like a wave is what gives the results. It's probably the ones who have had this notion for a long time who become good, like Horikoshi Sensei or Fujimoto Sensei. And oh yeah, it apparently came out that Toji was apparently modeled after Jason Statham, which, you know what, I can see it. Anyways, y'all, that's all I got for you for now. I just thought this information was really fascinating, so I wanted to share it with you guys. And again, this has all been in flux, so take it with a grain of salt. There may be even more we find out as more people get to go to this exhibition. Maybe we'll get some edits to the things I've already described here. We'll just have to see. And if any of you are from Japan and you go to the exhibit, let us know. We'd love to have the first-hand information. Anyways, y'all, thank you so much for watching.